The cases of feral children always intrigued public. A feral child is a child who has lived isolated from human contact for a very young age. Such a child has little experience with human care, social behavior, or language. Feral child is often abandoned by parents or guardians. Feral children are often mentioned in mythology. Romulus and Remus were raised by a she-wolf. Tales often mention how feral children are raised by animals like wolves and bears. In reality, there was no evidence that animals adopted children. Feral children were sometimes living near animals. There were hoaxes. Author of Misha, a memoir of Holocaust years, lied about being Jewish and about being raised by the wolves. What happened in Yugoslavia, and was the story verified? The story was told by the people who worked for state institutions. I would say it is verified, though there are gaps. Let's start from the beginning. In 1988, a boy was found in the forest in Bosnia by the hunters. The hunters found him in the cave with wolves. He was taken to Travnik, Bosnia. Local authorities tried to identify the child. No one ever claimed the boy. His age was estimated to be 10 or 12 due to his height. Height can be misleading. The boy was found in Bosnia near the borders with Serbia and Montenegro. This means he could have come from Bosnia, Montenegro, or Serbia. All South Slavs look similar, so it was impossible to tell boy's ethnicity based on his appearance. He had light brown hair, almost blonde, and blue eyes. South Slav stereotype is dark hair and eyes. In reality, there is a significant number of South Slavs with blonde hair and blue eyes. Bosnian authorities had to name the boy and decide what to do with him. He was named Haris Pućurica and declared to be Bosnian Muslim. He was nicknamed Pućke based on his new last name. He was then sent to Belgrade, Serbia. Belgrade was the capital of both Serbia and Yugoslavia at the same time. Many orphans and abandoned children from other republics were sent to Belgrade. Belgrade had more doctors, teachers, and social workers to take care of the children. Haris was placed in Centralno prihvatilište za decu I omladinu. English, Central Shelter for Children and Youth. Children in this center were abandoned and neglected by their families. Some kids came from extreme poverty, while other kids were caught stealing or misbehaving. This center still exists today, but now it is called Zavod za vaspitavanje dece I omladine. English, Institute for Education of Children and Youth. I will continue calling them the center. Haris learned to speak rather quickly after coming to the center. This means Haris had contact with humans in his early years. Otherwise, he would have been unable to learn to speak. His teachers from the center remember things about Haris. He liked to eat raw food and protected his plate while eating. He didn't know how to use cutlery. Haris spoke very little, but wasn't mentally disabled. He learned how to read and write and count. He walked with difficulties, so he was sent to a hospital for tests. Doctors discovered that Haris was healthy. He only didn't know how to walk in shoes. When he was barefoot, Haris had no problem with walking. In his early years, Haris had little contact with technology. He hid under the bed when he saw TV for the first time. Haris was a quiet child who rarely caused trouble. He was very protective of his possessions. Once Haris' marble ended in the toilet. Haris broke the toilet to get his marble back. Despite his early years, Haris managed to form friendships with other kids. Haris claimed he couldn't remember what happened to him. It is possible that Haris suppressed traumatic memories. We cannot know how long he lived in the forest. There is also a chance that Haris didn't want to tell about his family out of fear. He wouldn't want to be returned to them if they were abusive. How was Yugoslav social care? Communists didn't like to take kids from their parents. And because of this, many children remained with abusive parents. The society in general believed in physical punishment. Parents were allowed to discipline their children however they wanted. Kids were taken by the state only if their parents agreed, or if the kids broke the law. In cases of grave parental negligence, kids were placed with relatives. Parents leave their newborns and toddlers in Zvečanska Street. It is temporary home for children. They are not given up for adoption. The kids in Zvečanska Street wait for their parents to get back for them. Many parents actually return for the kids. Kids from Zvečanska Street had to move to other institutions when they reached a certain age. Foster care system was very limited. Kids with health issues and psychological traumas wouldn't be placed with foster parents. It is the main reason why Haris remained at the center and wasn't placed in the foster family. We cannot know if Haris would have stayed in the center until he aged out. By the time Yugoslav war started, Haris was well adjusted. During his 4 years at the center, Haris made huge progress. At the same time, Yugoslavia was falling apart. Yugoslavia was a federation of 6 republics. By 1992, Yugoslavia was reduced to Serbia and Montenegro. Newly independent republics demanded the return of their children. They didn't want the kids to be raised in Belgrade anymore. Belgrade agreed to return all the children from other republics. Haris was one of the children. Now there are huge gaps in the story. Haris was sent to a group home in Bosnia. It is believed that he joined the fighting and died. He would have been 17 or 18 when he died. But this information is based on rumors. We cannot tell for sure what happened to Haris. We don't know if Haris was drafted or if he volunteered to join the fight. The 1990s were a chaotic time, so it was possible to slip under the radar. In 2014, Serbs made a movie about Haris called Ničije dete. Ničije dete is translated as No One's Child. The film was shown during Venice Film Festival. Would things be different if feral child was found today? Some things changed since 1988, but many remain the same. Kids with mental disabilities remain in institutions. Most foster care parents are not trained to deal with kids with serious mental problems. Kids with disabilities are more included in the society. But Serbia cannot afford to give all the support the kids need. The state is still reluctant to take kids from their parents. We do not have DNA database, so it would be impossible to identify feral child using DNA test. How long could have Haris survived in the forest? I cannot imagine him spending years in the forest. The Balkans have harsh winters. Some drunks froze to death after sleeping in the snow. I would say Haris was on his own for months and not years. Does this make him a true feral child? He fit the criteria as he needed to learn social behavior. Why isn't his story more famous? Yugoslavia had image to protect in front of the foreigners. Due to language barrier, many stories never spread outside Yugoslavia. Many foreigners saw Yugoslavia as a success story. Romania had much bigger problem with abandoned kids than Yugoslavia did. Foreign journalists focused on Romanian orphanages. Most abandoned children in Serbia have mental or physical disabilities. In a perfect world, every such child would get their own nurse and caretaker, but in the real world there is not enough money to employ so many people. Haris wasn't the only child who had to be socialized. The only difference is that other children had parents and confirmed identities.